There are moments when desire is not sparked by beauty, by charm, or even by passion. It awakens in silence, in a glance, in the quiet recognition of something deeper. A man who has lived, who has been broken and healed, who has fought through love and loss, is not moved by the superficial. He is moved by presence. And not just any presence, but the presence of a woman who doesn't need to be chosen because she has already chosen herself. That is the kind of energy that lingers in a man's mind long after you've left the room. What I want you to understand is this. True desire cannot be faked. It doesn't live in tricks, formulas, or carefully practiced words. It lives in embodiment. It radiates from the way you exist in your own skin, the way you breathe, the way your silence holds more power than your words. A man who is emotionally awake doesn't fall for tactics. He falls for authenticity, for a presence that mirrors something hidden within him. Carl Jung once wrote that deep within the unconscious of every man lies the image of the woman, and within every woman, the image of the man. Desire, then, is not simply about attraction. It's about recognition. Something in you reflects back to him what he has long carried but never named, and when he sees it in you, he cannot look away. That is why the most powerful kind of desire is not born of seduction, but of resonance. Think about it. A man feels drawn to you, not because you demand his attention, but because with you. He doesn't have to explain, defend, or prove anything. He just has to be. And in that simple, profound allowance, being seen without needing to perform, something awakens. But here's the secret. It is not your need that awakens his desire. It is your recognition. Not your demand, but your acknowledgement. And this is where a subtle, invisible key lies. What I call mental nicknames. Now let me be clear. These are not manipulative phrases, not flattery, not empty lines designed to hook him. They are words that carry weight because they are spoken from truth, from the part of you that sees clearly and honors deeply. They are words that highlight in him what he values most but rarely hears named. Think of it this way. The world doesn't often tell a man, "I feel safe when you're here," or "I admire how steady you are when others lose control." When such words are spoken with sincerity, they don't touch his ego. They touch his identity. And when his identity is touched, desire becomes real. Not a fleeting spark, but a flame. Not an urgency, but a steady bond. Because men, especially those who have outgrown the shallow games of conquest, long to be desired for who they are, not just for what they give. They don't want to be needed out of desperation. They want to be chosen out of freedom. That difference is everything. So let me take you into his world for a moment. Imagine him standing beside you, not performing, not trying to impress, simply being. And instead of reaching for his attention, you look into his eyes and say softly, "The way you handle things without losing yourself, it amazes me." That moment stays with him, because it isn't about you needing him. It's about you seeing him. And being seen is what every man deep down craves. But here is where many women unknowingly fall into a trap. They confuse vulnerability with neediness, mistaking "I can't live without you" for intimacy. Yet true intimacy is not born from dependence, it's born from presence. Saying "I couldn't do this without you" weighs heavy on him, because it makes him responsible for your existence. But saying "I love how you protect, how you ground me just by being here," that doesn't burden him. It honors him. It doesn't demand. It invites. And in that invitation, his desire deepens. When you embody this energy, when your recognition comes from a place of calm rather than a place of lack, He feels it instantly. He doesn't just hear your words, he hears your pauses. He notices your breathing, the steadiness of your gaze, the rhythm of your silence. And that subtle maturity is irresistible. Because an emotionally available man is not searching for a woman who conquers him. He's searching for a woman who sees him, who allows him to stand fully in his own essence. And when you do this, when you mirror back his strength, not with need, but with reverence, something ancient stirs within him. It is the instinct to protect, not from obligation, not from a sense of control, but from the primal recognition that his presence matters. This instinct is not about rescuing, it is about meaning. And when a man feels that with you, his presence carries weight. He leans into it with his whole being. Picture this. You're walking together and something unsettling happens nearby. You don't panic, you don't overreact. Instead, you step just a little closer, glance at him, and whisper with quiet certainty, "When you're here, I feel like nothing can happen to me." He doesn't need to fight, to posture, or to prove anything. Yet in that instant, he straightens, his senses sharpen. Because his protective instinct has been honored, not demanded, honored. And that is the difference between manipulation and magnetism. The truth is, you don't need grand gestures to awaken his desire. You only need presence, because the most irresistible thing is not a woman who begs to be seen. It's a woman who already knows her worth and still chooses to see him. That is where true attraction is born. Authentic desire has no script. It cannot be rehearsed, cannot be forced, cannot be staged. It arises when two souls recognize each other, when the space between them becomes charged not with tension, but with presence. That is why the men who are truly awake do not fall for games. They are not moved by strategies designed to control them. They are drawn to freedom, yet not just any freedom. They crave the rare paradox, the kind of freedom that makes them feel seen, safe, and inspired all at once. Think of it this way. A man doesn't stay with the woman who tries to trap him. He stays with the woman who makes him feel free, yet deeply recognized. He doesn't want to be tamed. He wants to be understood. He doesn't want to be needed. He wants to be chosen. And the woman who understands this is not louder, not more desperate, not more dramatic. She is calmer. She is rooted in her worth. She radiates a serenity that says, "I am whole with or without you. And because I am whole, I can see you fully." That is what makes him want to stay. Carl Jung once said, "The shadow is everything the individual refuses to acknowledge about themselves." Why does this matter in love? Because a man begins to desire deeply only when he feels he can bring even his shadow into the light without being judged. Desire doesn't flourish when he is corrected, boxed in, or molded into someone else's ideal. It flourishes when a woman creates the quiet space where he can unfold, piece by piece, without fear. That space is magnetic. It doesn't demand. It allows. And allowing is more seductive than any act of seduction. But here is where so many women unintentionally extinguish that spark. Out of fear of losing him, they cling. Out of a desire to feel secure, they demand reassurance. Out of longing for closeness, they mistake dependency for intimacy. Yet the energy that awakens desire is not, "I need you to fix me." It is, "I see what you hold within you, and I honor it." That is the subtle but powerful shift that turns obligation into devotion. Imagine two different moments. In one, a woman says with trembling voice, "I couldn't survive without you." The man hears her words, and although his instinct is to comfort her, something inside feels the weight of pressure. But in another moment, a woman meets his eyes calmly and says with a soft smile, The way you handled that, without losing yourself. It was admirable. In that instant, he doesn't feel burdened. He feels honored. He feels seen, not as her savior, but as a man standing in his essence. And that recognition ignites something that lasts far longer than pity or urgency. Desire is not born from need. It is born from impact. When your words name what is true about him, not to flatter, but to reflect, it anchors him in his masculine identity. You're not asking for protection. You are revealing that his very presence already protects. You are not making him useful. You are making him essential. And that difference is what turns a fleeting attraction into a bond. Watch how men respond when this happens. He will start noticing the small details you thought he overlooked. He will anticipate your needs before you voice them. He will lean in when you are silent, sensing the rhythm of your breath more than your words. His way of touching you will shift, firmer, more intentional, as if his hands are speaking the language of safety. And his gaze will linger, not because you demand it, but because something in him feels anchored by you. The mistake is thinking you must play fragile to unlock this. But fragility is not the path. It is exhaustion, both for him and for you. The power lies in strength, meeting strength. Feminine meeting masculine, without masks. It is not, I need you because I am weak. It is, I choose you because with you I can rest. That is the phrase that rewires everything, because it says, I don't use you. I value you. I don't collapse into you. I expand beside you. Picture another moment. You've had a long day, one of those that drains the life out of you. Instead of spiraling into dramatics, you simply lean into his arms and whisper, today was heavy, but when you hold me, everything falls back into place. You don't make him your solution. You make him your refuge, and that quiet trust awakens something ancient in him. He feels not like a tool, but like a man whose presence is enough. And that is the deepest kind of intimacy. When you do this, you speak to him in a language few ever have, because most men are used to being wanted for what they provide, not for who they are. But you are showing him that his being, not his doing, is enough. And in a world where everyone wants something from him, this recognition becomes addictive. He doesn't want to leave because he doesn't want to lose the space where he feels whole. Carl Jung once wrote that the feminine can awaken the transcendent function in a man, his drive to reach beyond himself, to offer his best not because he must, but because he wants to. This is not manipulation. It is inspiration. You don't push him. You invite him. You don't command him. You awaken him. And when you do, he does not just desire your body. He desires your presence. He begins to feel that you are not just a partner, but a mirror of his higher self. This is why your words, when spoken with reverence and not with urgency, hold such power. A simple phrase like, I love how you set that boundary. It was firm, yet graceful, can stay with him far longer than any flirtatious line. Because in that moment, you aren't playing small to elevate him. You are meeting him at his essence. You are saying, I see you as you are. And that is the rarest gift of all. Some men are not searching for comfort alone. They are searching for fire. But not just any fire, their own, the kind they have spent years learning to accept, to master, to no longer fear. These men are intense, creative, alive with energy that cannot be contained by shallow love or surface-level attraction. They are not drawn to easy flattery or obedience. They are drawn to women who can stand in the heat of their flame without shrinking. And when they find her, desire is not simply awakened, it is unleashed. Jung once wrote, I am not interested in a good person. I am interested in a whole person. That is what such a man seeks. Not perfection, not a gentle muse who exists only to soothe him, not a lover who exists only to reflect his glory. He seeks wholeness, a woman who carries her own chaos, her own fire, her own wildness, and yet chooses to meet his. That is the meeting point where desire becomes something elemental, something spiritual, something unstoppable. To awaken this kind of man, you do not compete with his freedom. You do not try to control his intensity, to water down his passion, or to cage his fire. You meet it with your own. You dance with it. You admire it, not because it makes life easier, but because it makes life real. And when you show him that his intensity does not scare you, that his rawness does not push you away, he begins to trust. And from trust, desire flows like wildfire. Picture this. He shares with you an idea, a dream that sounds impossible. Most people would dismiss it, warn him to be careful, or remind him of limits, but you don't. You let him finish, then look at him with a spark in your eyes and whisper, "The way you never give up. That turns me on." In that instant, you separate yourself from everyone else who ever tried to dim him. You didn't ground his fire. You fanned it. And nothing is more magnetic to a man who has carried his fire alone. Another moment. You're in the middle of a heated disagreement. His voice rises. His energy fills the room. Many women would shrink, avoid, or try to silence him. But you stay steady. You don't shout back, and you don't surrender. You remain present, rooted. And when the energy softens just enough, you say calmly, "I know I'm not easy, and neither are you. That's why this works." He laughs, not because it's funny, but because he realizes he has finally met someone who doesn't fear his storm. Someone who can stand in the chaos and still hold herself. That respect becomes desire. This is the essence of what I call the untamable man. He is not searching for someone to manage him, nor does he want to manage you. He wants a partner who recognizes his depth without trying to control it, and that requires that you hold your own depth. You cannot inspire freedom in another if you are living in fear. You cannot attract intensity if you run from your own shadow. To awaken such a man, you must first awaken yourself. The words that ignite him are not many, but they are powerful. There's something in you that refuses to bow, and it excites me. I don't want to change you. I want to see you in your fullest expression. When spoken softly, with the weight of truth, they cut deeper than any declaration of love, because they tell him what he secretly longs to hear, that you see his wildness and you do not want to extinguish it. How do you know when this has worked? Watch how he begins to reveal himself. He shares his inner world, his doubts, his memories that he hides from the rest of the world. He shows you his shadow, not because you demanded it, but because he trusts you won't use it against him. He leans into you not because you tether him, but because with you he feels more free, more himself, more whole. That paradox, freedom and intimacy together, is what makes him stay. But beware, the greatest mistake with such a man is trying to possess him. If you try to cage him, label him, or force him to prioritize you above his own essence, he will pull away. His loyalty cannot be demanded. It must be chosen. And he will choose you only if he feels that choosing you does not betray himself. That is why you must remain grounded in your own fire. You cannot chase him. You must allow him to return, not out of need, but out of desire. I recall a scene that captures this perfectly. A man, fierce and passionate, rages about an injustice he faced. His voice is strong, his presence overwhelming. Most would shrink or attempt to calm him, but the woman beside him does not. She sits steady, her eyes fixed on him, her body grounded. She does not interrupt, does not try to dissolve his anger. And when he finally quiets, she looks at him and says softly, "It moves me that you never stay silent. I never want to see that wildness extinguished in you." He doesn't answer. He simply breathes deeper and bows his head slightly, as if before an altar. It was not about sex. It was respect. It was the rare moment when a man feels both fully himself and fully desired. And that is why his desire for her became unbreakable. Jung once said, "Freedom is not doing what you want. It is becoming who you are." That is the secret to the untamable man. He does not want a woman who tries to make him convenient. He wants a woman who understands that his freedom is not a threat. It is his essence. And when he senses that you don't fear his essence, he doesn't just desire you physically. He desires you as witness, as partner, as mirror. Not to be owned, but to be met. This is why your greatest power lies not in controlling him, but in holding your own ground. If you can be the space where his fire can burn without consuming you, then he will return again and again. Not because you clung to him, but because you became the one place where his soul could breathe. And that kind of desire is not fleeting, it is eternal. Not all men express their strength in fire. Some express it in silence. Some reveal it not with grand gestures, but with the kind of presence that steadies everything around them. These are the men of steel and calm, the ones whose quiet strength is often overlooked, yet whose energy can rearrange the atmosphere of a room. They don't need to shout to be heard. They don't need to dominate to be felt. Their strength lies in self-mastery, and that makes them deeply magnetic. Carl Jung once wrote, "A strong man is not one who dominates others, but one who masters himself." This truth is alive in these men. They do not seek recognition. Yet when you see them, when you honor the depth of their calm, without misinterpreting it as indifference, they open in ways few have ever witnessed. Because the world rarely rewards them for steadiness. The world expects noise. But you, if you can look into his silence and whisper, "Your presence is my anchor," you awaken him at the core of his being. Picture this, you're unraveling, lost in confusion, tears falling. He doesn't rush to fix it. He doesn't offer cliches or quick solutions. He simply listens. He stays. He holds you with the strength of his stillness, unshaken by your storm. And when it's over, he wraps his arms around you in silence. No words, no rescue, just presence. In that moment, you rest. And in that rest, his desire awakens because his identity has been affirmed. He is enough simply by being. If you lean into him then, look into his eyes and say softly, "The way you stay steady when everything in me falls apart. It grounds me more than any advice ever could." You give him a gift the world rarely gives. You name his calm, his center, his invisible strength. And when you do, his desire shifts. He doesn't just want to touch your body. He wants to hold your soul. Because you have seen him in the place where few ever look. This kind of man doesn't need drama to feel alive. He doesn't need to be provoked to prove himself. He doesn't want a woman who tests him with games. He wants a woman who respects his rhythm, who breathes with him rather than against him. And when you learn to mirror that, pausing before speaking, listening with presence, offering silence as much as words, you awaken a bond that feels unbreakable, because you are no longer two people trying to manage each other. You are two centers, steady enough to hold chaos without collapsing. But here is the danger. His calm can be misread. Too many women see it as detachment, as lack of passion, and they push, they prod, they provoke until he withdraws. What they don't see is that his silence is not absence. It is depth. And the moment you trust it instead of fighting it, you unlock the part of him that longs to share. He opens not to demand, but to devote. Think of another moment. You are in a difficult conversation, and he grows quiet. Instead of demanding an answer, you place your hand gently over his and whisper, "I don't need an answer now. Just knowing you're here is enough." Those words, spoken without pressure, sink deeper than any declaration of love, because they tell him you see the truth. His presence has weight, even without words. This is the secret to awakening him. Not with strategies, not with manipulation, but with acknowledgement. By naming what is invisible, you make him feel recognized in a way he has never been before. And when that happens, his desire for you deepens, not out of lust, but out of reverence, because you have seen him in the place where he hides his greatest strength. Now, there is one final truth we must face. Beneath every man, no matter how fiery or calm, lies the pull of mystery. Not the kind of mystery that hides out of insecurity, but the kind born of depth, a presence that reveals itself slowly, layer by layer, like pages of a book he never wants to stop reading. Mystery is not about playing games. It is about being comfortable in your depth, about knowing you do not have to reveal everything at once to be desired. Carl Jung once wrote, "Only that which has not yet become conscious can be projected." Mystery is that unconscious space, a place where he senses more to you than he can grasp, and that draws him in again and again. It is the silence between your words, the pause in your glance, the story you begin but do not finish. It is not withholding. It is presence that cannot be fully consumed in a single moment. And here is where your power lies. You are not meant to be everything at once. You are not meant to prove yourself or to fight for his attention. You are meant to stand whole in your own depth, in your own becoming, to let him see you, not all at once, but slowly, in the rhythm of your truth. That is what keeps him returning. Not because you have trapped him, but because with you, he finds freedom and fascination at the same time. So remember this, you are not here to beg for love. You're not here to contort yourself into what you think he wants. You are here to embody yourself so fully that he cannot help but recognize his own soul reflected in you. Desire is not born from chasing. It is born from choosing. And the most irresistible woman is the one who knows her worth, who sees a man fully and still whispers, "I choose you." In a world that is loud with illusions and shallow games, your quiet presence can be the loudest call. In a time where everyone rushes to prove their worth, your calm authenticity can be the rarest gift. And when a man with a soul meets a woman with a soul, all the games end. What remains is not illusion, not need, but the freedom of two people who see each other and still choose to stay. Not because they have to, but because in that presence, they finally recognize themselves. If these words have stirred something within you, if they have awakened a memory, a longing, or a truth you had forgotten, hold on to it. Because desire, love, and connection are not accidents. They are choices. They are energies we learn to embody. And the moment you step into that kind of presence, you stop chasing love and begin attracting it in its most authentic form. Here, on Heartsync X, we don't play games. We go deeper, into psychology, into soul, into the hidden patterns that shape love and desire. because you deserve more than surface attraction. You deserve connection that lasts. So if this spoke to you, I invite you to take a moment. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and most of all, subscribe. Not for me, but for yourself, for the reminder to keep returning to your truth, your worth, your fire. And remember, the most magnetic love story you'll ever live begins not with another, but with you.